We gonna let the band deal with this. In my A style. Old school. Okay. Shut up. Okay. What's up?
This is Deliberate Action, a podcast for men who take responsibility seriously, men who protect, provide, and lead their families and communities. We have honest conversations about masculinity, leadership, discipline, and culture, because talk without action changes nothing. Today, we're going to be diving into the topic of preparedness based on everything that's going on in the world around us and across the nation, and why preparedness matters. To kick things off, Chris, would you be able to give kind of a definition of what preparedness means in a modern concept?
Being aware of what could be and making the necessary adjustments to be prepared for that kind of thing. So, could there be a zombie apocalypse? I don't know. But could there be an economic collapse? Probably. And so being aware of that possibility and choosing not to prepare for it is not the wisest move, I'd say.
Yeah, and for people who laugh at the zombie apocalypse analogy, even the government does annual training for zombie apocalypse scenarios.
Yeah, there's probably a reason.
And I think it's probably because it's a very clear example of how fast a contagion can spread. But it is interesting that they choose the zombie virus as their training scenario.
Yeah.
So it's always something interesting for the conspiracy theorist. Why would you say preparedness has become a serious topic again recently, in recent events?
There's been a lot of uncertainty, and people are operating out of fear, and so they're going to gravitate towards the guys that are that have been preparing for something for a really long time. The same guys that they called conspiracy theorists and made shows about, what was that? The Prepper show.
Yeah.
Like, everybody made fun of the Prepper that has a bunker in his backyard and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that you need to go that far, but now everybody's looking to that guy to teach them how to be prepared for the amount of uncertainty that is ahead of us at the moment. So it's, to simply answer the question, it's because of the amount of uncertainty. And individuals don't like discomfort, and so they want to be as prepared as possible to minimize the amount of discomfort that's probably around the corner.
Yeah, and mainstream has done a pretty good job of painting the prepper as the crazy person. Even the prepper show that you were talking about, they always had the craziest person who's on there sneaking up on his family in the middle of the night in the ghillie suit just to see if they're prepared for it at a random time of the night. Stuff like that. So they try to make it seem crazy to be prepared, and at the same time they do everything that they can to make everyone more dependent on the government for that preparedness to take care of them in a disaster situation. I forget where the study came from, but recently there was a study done that said if power went out in the U.S., after I think it was 90 days, over 90% of the country would be dead from not having water, not having food, not having protection from the government, because government can't do anything in that scenario. And people are killing themselves, they're dying of thirst, dying of hunger. Everyone's out for themselves in that type of scenario.
Yeah, we've relied on technology for everything. I don't think that there's anybody that knows, like, the 10% that would survive are the people that have dove into how to find sustainable water sources, what kinds of food are edible in the wilderness, how to hunt, those kinds of things, while everybody else has stayed glued to their phones and they save the reel that teaches them that thing, hoping that, you know, when shit hits the fan, they can just go to their saved reels list and see how to find water.
Yeah. With no power and no social media available, people are going to try to go back to their saved reels on Instagram. On that topic, let's dive a little bit into the types of people that someone who may not have the most training or experience or knowledge in this area could turn to for learning some of that knowledge on how to prepare themselves. So, for example, former military, and by the way, for anyone that's out there, former military does not mean that that person knows how to take care of themselves or survive in the wilderness, but it's a good starting point, and there's a chance that they may actually know something. So you got former militaries, former special operations guys, survival experts who are just out there teaching courses. You've got Amish. Amish are amazing at living off the grid. They have their own farms. They make their own food, clothing, everything. Hippies, very, very different people from us or the people that we hang out with, but they are very good at knowing what plants are safe, how to actually use them, how to use homeopathic, natural remedies or health products. And any one of those people or groups can be a good source or wealth of information.
Yeah, the guy that you think is weird in your neighborhood because he'll go out and muddy up his Jeep for a couple weeks at a time and come back with a buck on his hood. The guy that you think is weird while you're sitting there watching Netflix shows of people about him, you should probably interact with that individual. I'd say also, like, getting to know your neighbors is huge. I'm not very good at this, and I've discovered that some of my neighbors are good at things that I'm probably not very good at. I hate doing stuff around the house, and I have some neighbors that are pretty hands-on. I also don't have the time to do the stuff around the house. So, like, when you're getting to know your neighbors, when stuff does happen, you can lean on each other for different skill sets. You don't have to be everything in order to survive something, right? You just need to be good at something and be able to offer that to somebody else who has something that you're also lacking, and work together. That's how communities form. That's how establishments were built. Somebody had a skill that they could add value to a specific settlement, and they thrived in that settlement. So get to know your neighbors, and you're not going to have your phone. You're not going to be able to go to your saved reels that you've already forgotten about. So maybe invest in a couple of hard copy resources that could be beneficial for you if stuff does go awry. Like a book on specific plants that you might not want to touch or might want to touch. A book on how to track. A book on how to hunt. Like, books are very valuable resources that people undervalue. I have a lot of books in my call it my preparedness bin of things that I don't necessarily have the desire to learn, but if I need to, I can go read a book and open up the pages and learn what I need to learn. But right now, it doesn't serve me to, while I'm trying to build a business, go learn about every type of plant out there. You know what I mean? So We're not saying go out and be the jack of all trades. There's probably somebody in your community who knows something. There's books out there. There's all kinds of things that people just don't want to take advantage of, and they want to hope that everything's going to be okay and they don't have to worry about it anyways.
And for anyone who doesn't necessarily know what books to look for, or even necessarily like what topics to search for, a good starting point is to go to your local feed store, like Tractor Supply. Every feed store is going to have a shelf of books that are on farming, homesteading, canning foods, animal care, husbandry, butcher, books, plants. And any one of those books, just pick a random one, and it's probably going to be a good starting point to take home and read.
Yeah, and medical as well.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to any bookstore and probably find a medical book. An old, I don't know, what do you Army guys do? What is it? The
T-Tric.
Yeah. The well, you guys have like your Army doctrine book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the medical doctrine. Any of those books, or NAEMT, they offer resources as well. You can print out PDFs. Like, there's a lot of ways to do it, and it just takes a couple hours of your time to go out and find those resources, or to meet your neighbor. Just get off your ass, stop being lazy.
Yeah, and that's a good point about neighbors. I live where neighbors aren't necessarily close. They're a little more spread out, but I still know the people that are around me and what they may or may not have to offer. Also, who you may actually want to watch out for and possibly avoid in those types of scenarios if things actually did go south.
Yeah.
On the topic of awareness, how does awareness reduce your personal risk and risk to your family?
This is so this when I first read this question in the notes that you sent me, I was like, this was a stupid question. But I understand that some people just walk around with their heads in their phones most of the time. So for me, it's a stupid question. For you, it's a stupid question. If you're not aware of what is around you, you're going to be the first one affected by something that happens. So maybe pull your fucking head out of your phone. Maybe be aware you have your wife and your kids around you. It's probably a good idea not to get sucked into the things that are right in front of you. It's probably a good idea to see the individuals 100 yards away, or the fight that broke out down that street. And these are just hypotheticals, but you know, if there's an argument happening over there, it's probably maybe a good idea to cross the street with your family, because that could turn into something that is not beneficial for your family and your kids to be directly involved with. So awareness provides you the ability to navigate away from unsafe scenarios.
Yeah, and that's why I included that question in the notes. If you have 100 people going down the street, 50% of them are probably going to have their heads down in the phone, like you're talking about, scrolling Instagram as they're walking, or texting, or talking on the phone. Maybe another 20 or 30 are going to be talking, having conversations with each other, which is better than having your head buried in the phone, but you're still not paying attention to what's around you. And you may have another 10 or so who got headphones in, not listening to what's going on around them. They're listening to a podcast, music, or a book or something, just kind of in their own world. Out of 100, you may have 2 or 3 who are actually paying attention to what's going on around them, watching the cars that are going down the street. It's why you have people who just step out into traffic, because they're just not paying attention, especially in Seattle. And you'll have, like you said, a fight's breaking out up ahead of you, and people will whip out their phone and film instead of actually taking some measure of preparedness to protect themselves, or call the police, or do something other than just put it on Instagram for social media. So even if something happens, people's reaction tends to be, one, panic and run away, or two, they're so used to being disconnected from things that happen in the world that their instant reaction is to film it and put it on social media.
Yeah, it's the difference between, like, when we train people to be effective carriers for self-defense, there is a mindset shift that is required when you are someone who is intending on carrying the capability to defend themselves and their family, right? So in the form of carrying a pistol or whatever it is, there's a difference between being a hard target and a soft target. The soft target is everybody else around you who is glued to everything but what's in front of them, or ahead of them. The hard target is the individual that, believe me, if you're sucked into your phone, the person who intends to do you harm sees that you're sucked into your phone. The person that intends to rob somebody isn't looking for the guy that is head up, head on a swivel, taking care of his family, leading his family, because they want to take the path of least resistance. So get your head out of your phone, be a hard target. You have a duty to protect your family and to lead them down the right path, both literally and figuratively. So the only way you're able to do that is by being aware of your surroundings. One of the only ways that you're able to do that is by being aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, there's only a few places in the country where you probably shouldn't carry as opposed to carry, because you could wind up in jail. Although personally I would still carry, because what's the saying, rather be judged by a jury of 12 instead of carried by 6, something like that.
Judged by a jury of my peers, then carried by 6, yeah.
So yeah, no matter what, I'm carrying everywhere I go. But for people who don't have the training, and I know that you do a lot of training on the side for your business, and you train people how to actually use firearms and how to use them safely. Where is somewhere that people should start if they are lacking experience in personal carry, even if they have some experience on a range?
So I'll agree with you. I will carry anywhere. It is my Second Amendment right. Nobody's going to take that away from me. However, what I will understand at the same time is the laws that govern my ability to respond within a given jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to Idaho, the laws that govern my duty to respond are not the same by any means as if I go 100 feet over the border to Commie, Washington. The laws that govern my ability to respond are a lot different.
Night and day.
Yeah, literally. So if you're someone who thinks that you're okay on a range and you want to progress, it is probably a good idea to understand where you are at now. What are the laws that govern your ability to respond? So for Washington State, those are called RCWs. And they are governed by what is reasonable and necessary, and that gets into self-defense, right? So what is reasonable and necessary? Now, if you go into a different state, you might have something called a duty to retreat, which means if someone has a gun to your head, you have a duty to try and run away first. Now, tell me how the fuck that makes sense. It doesn't, right? You need to understand that, though, because that might mean your head needs to be on a little bit more of a swivel than if I go to a state that has stand your ground law or castle law and stuff like that. But you need to understand all of these terms, because they will, if you don't understand them, how can you be confident in your ability to protect?
Yeah.
You can't, because you don't this is what I got asked by. So we all get taught, and law enforcement gets taught. I'm not law enforcement, but a lot of guys that operate at a higher echelon of protection get taught something that is called the grappling shot, right? Or the is it firing from? It's not firing from the hip, but the hip shot. We'll call it the hip shot.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, the chicken wing, whatever you want to call it, right? What it's designed to do is it's designed to neutralize a threat with the 21-foot rule in mind, without getting sucked into your sight. So basically, you're drawing from the holster straight to a chicken wing and pulling the trigger. And I was asked why, if that is something that is taught, why do police officers not do it all the time? And I think it comes down to fear of what happens for the rounds that go to the left and to the right, because no longer does a cop have civil immunity in the state of Washington, at least in King County, right? So if you are not aware of the laws that govern your ability to act, you cannot be confident, and that will lead to fear, and that will lead to hesitation, and that leads to casualties.
And I would say most cops also don't have the level of training that's required to build confidence that their rounds are going where they're supposed to be going. But even the ones who do, they're still going to have that momentary hesitation because of civil liability issues for police officers.
Yeah. But I mean, you and I are pretty confident in our ability to fire one shot with one hand to the pelvis in less than 2 seconds, right? But we train to that on a regular basis. Most cops go to the range once, however,
and they're shooting a silhouette from 25, 50 yards.
Yeah, and then that's it. They don't. And this comes down to poor staffing, where they need to be working every single day because, and I'm speaking specifically to Washington State, but nobody wants to work in the state of Washington as a cop because they're not protected anymore. Nobody likes them. The wrong people don't like them, I'll say. And so when do they even get an opportunity to train?
And I think some of that also goes into risk mitigation on the part of the administration that's in charge as well. They don't want their officers being trained up to a skillful level, because then those officers might actually take more actions in a scenario that calls for it, which then puts the department at more risk for litigation in a court, because their officers are actually doing their job and responding the way that they should be in a high threat environment. So they would rather keep them trained to a low degree and have them respond to less and less. Like even in Seattle, we both know from working up there, police officers typically do not respond to anything until after it's over. And then they'll come out, they'll take their notes, do their investigation, and then leave. Rarely do they ever actually show up during an incident.
Yeah, which is not how I would do it.
No.
How I would run a department, but who am I?
That's Washington.
Yeah.
Why would you say people often mistake preparedness for paranoia?
Well, that's easy because they've villainized being prepared for that, and there's a reason for that. They've made it like think about how crazy the individual who has, like you said, sneaking into the house with a ghillie suit. He has tunnels in his house, and they game plan, like the kids need to get to the safe tunnel, and then they all need to convene and make their way to the bunker. Like, that sounds pretty crazy to the average person who doesn't do a whole lot other than work a 9 to 5 at a shitty job and come home and take care of their family. So to them, that sounds like what are you preparing for? Like, you need to chill, right? And that just happens to be most of society, and that's been villainized for a very long time. And so I think the initial response is, why are you so paranoid? It's like, I'm not. And nobody's saying that you have to be the guy with tunnels in your house and and a bunker in the backyard, but you have to have at least some element of foresight to say that this is where we are now, this is where we could be, how do I prepare for that so that I'm not reactive?
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say foresight is being able to see the potential outcomes in the future, not necessarily saying that one will happen over the other, but seeing the worst that could happen and being prepared for it while hoping for the best. And I do think that there's been a resurgence recently, in recent years, for people getting back to being self-sufficient and having a self-sustained lifestyle. And homesteading itself is becoming more popular. There's more shows that are popping up on TV that people can watch and get good information on it, or motivation to go out and do it themselves. And a lot of that is based on what's happening in the world, and people see the potential for, catastrophes around every corner, especially with what's going on overseas right now. But the good that's coming out of it is that people are very, very slowly coming awake to the fact that they need to do something for themselves.
Yeah, well, let's break it down then, because prices for food started to rise significantly. People realize that it's cheaper to go and buy a couple chickens and raise chickens so that they have eggs than it is to go buy a $20 dozen of eggs, or however much it was, right? And they say that eggs is like or chickens is like once you get chickens, like, prepare for a farm,
It's
right?
the gateway
Or
to
sourdough. Like, for me, for my spouse, it's sourdough. She started making sourdough, and now she wants chickens, and now we're gonna apparently live on a farm someday. So
It's the way to do it.
but it starts with understanding. Well, let's even break that down. Like, I don't have to go to the store to make to buy disgusting poisoned bread anymore. I can make it from home, and it's healthier, it's cheaper, and it tastes better.
Yeah, we started with 6 chickens, and now we've got 35. Until recently we had sheep, which we rehomed as we prepare for selling this place and moving on to a different location. But yeah, everyone starts somewhere, and then over time gets to a point that they're comfortable with, or get out of their comfort zone and learn something new.
Yeah, but then you're like, well, I can make some sourdough. That was pretty easy. What else can I do for myself?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like we talked about in our unreleased episode, is the you're building a gap between dependency, which by definition creates freedom. So people are realizing that if I can be more self-reliant, self-dependent, and I don't have to rely on stimulus checks or all this BS that they want to hand out for free, I'm building more freedom and sustainable freedom for myself and my family. And that is why it is becoming more and more popular to do things like that, is because nobody wants to be dependent on this system that is clearly not operating in our best interests, and hasn't been for a very long time, but people are just now realizing it because it's so in your face. And so now they're looking for ways to at least start that first step for self-reliance and dependency and independency, or independence, excuse me.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, with our food in the stores being poisoned, every day there's something new that we learn about food products that we just should not consume and are basically not fit for human consumption. One place to start, I think that everyone, and this goes to helping with having a good relation with the food that you consume, everyone, I think, should take butcher classes. They should know where their meat comes from. They should know the animal that it comes from and the process that's involved with taking it from a farmer's field to their kitchen table. And I think everyone should know how to even if they're not experts, they should have enough knowledge so that they can actually walk themselves through that process if necessary.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I quartered a deer, it was through YouTube.
Yeah.
But I know how to quarter a deer now. So.
Oh, I've learned so many things from YouTube University.
Yeah, but that's all going to go away. So.
Yep.
If something was to happen.
Yeah. And then we go back to having the hard copy books in your homes to be ready. For awareness and avoidance, why should men avoid high-risk environments when possible? And asking this knowing that recently you attended a high-risk environment at a hockey game.
Yeah. Yeah. When you have agencies coming out, the same agencies who have been telling people like Sarah Adams to shut the fuck up, and then finally they're coming out and agreeing with everything that she's been saying for the past couple years, it's probably a good idea to stay away from certain areas that might have heightened states of possible risk. And all right, there's something in my eye. It's just, why would you put yourself and your family or the people you care about intentionally in a situation that you know could possibly be dangerous?
Yeah. And crowds increase unpredictability because, well, to be frank, like, you don't know the people who are in that crowd. Aside from the small group that you may or may not be with, there's no one in that crowd that you know. Everyone is usually there in a crowd for some type of event, like entertainment is typical. And if that's the case, then that's where their focus is. No one's paying attention to what's going on around them, and it becomes a very high risk and high probability environment for a threat to manifest.
Yeah. And it's not to say, like I had a good time at the hockey game, but I was also, like, more, my state of awareness was heightened to a point of almost anxiety. Like, to where it kind of took away from some of the enjoyment. And it has nothing to do with the people I was with or the hockey game itself, but just the current environment that we were put in, right? And did anything happen? No. But did I know that nothing was going to happen until I finally got home that night? No. Right, so, like, it's just a good rule of thumb. Don't put yourself or your family into situations. It's like, okay, if there is a fight in an alleyway, but that is a shortcut to get back to your car, but you can see the fight in the alleyway, does it make sense to be like, hey fam, let's take this alleyway because it's a shortcut? No, we're going to take the long way because there's something going on that could place you, my wife, or you, my kids, in harm. Like,
that's how you avoid a Bruce Wayne origin story.
Yeah. Yeah, for real.
Yeah, and for situations like that, crowded arenas, stadiums, there's so many things that we've talked about offline and things that we probably shouldn't say on a platform like this because it could potentially give the wrong people ideas. But it is a very easy target and environment for creating mass casualty, mass destruction, mass panic that could spread across the nation very quickly. And whether or not it goes across the nation, locally, and like right there in that immediate moment, it's a very, very bad scenario to be in for anyone.
Yeah, and again, it's not living, I heard this, I'm not going to live in fear. It has nothing to do with that. It's understanding the possibility of something happening and choosing to not put yourself in that kind of scenario. It has nothing to do with living in fear. It's living prepared and living effective and choosing to live longer.
Yeah, and also requires you to have at least some basic level of awareness of what's going on nationally and globally. Like, for example, recently, going back to Sarah Adams, she said a year ago or more that there were thousands of terrorists who had come across the border, and that those are just the ones that we knew came across the border and were the quote-unquote gotaways because they were caught and released, let alone the ones who got across without being stopped by Border Patrol. And now, in the past week or so, you have the FBI and intel agencies basically agreeing with Sarah Adams and saying that there's over 18,000 terrorists who are in the country right now. And those are just the ones that they know about that got into the country, and we probably put them on some of those planes and flew them to whatever cities that they requested to go to, because that was the practice for Border Patrol under the previous administration.
Yeah, and then within the start of the war to now, last I checked, it was 5 attacks on U.S. soil that were lone operators. But one of them was wearing a property of Allah. One of them was a mass stabbing, I think, in D.C. or Washington, D.C., which we know as a common practice of terrorists. So, like, stuff like that's going to continue to happen, and it's going to get worse. And that doesn't mean that you shelter in place unless it's actually necessary to shelter in place. But it means that let's not go spend our time in mass gatherings. Let's not, and let's prepare for if we do need to shelter in place.
Yeah.
Like, that's all that we're saying is, like, if you needed to shelter in place, do you have the food stores set aside to survive? Not do you have a bunker, but do you have a couple weeks of food set aside for if that needed to happen,
Something
or water
to last until power and water is back on.
Yeah, do you have like a gallon a day for everybody in your family for 2 weeks? Like, it's probably a good start. And it's super inexpensive. Doesn't take a whole lot of time to go to the store and fill up 5-gallon drums of water. Like, so it's again, it's not living in fear. It's just having some goddamn common sense.
And having that same common sense, I think, also applies if you are, especially if you're traveling, even if you're only traveling through the U.S. This morning, I haven't seen the outcome of it. I need to look up on the news and see what happened. And by news, I don't mean Fox News, but actually seeing what people are saying about it on the internet. Someone on a Southwest Airlines basically boarded the plane and then started threatening to blow up the plane with a bomb. And there's video and pictures of all the people on the plane with their heads into the headrest in front of them, hands up in the air, while SWAT's going through and arresting the guy. And all these people are trying to do is travel somewhere across the nation for vacation, holiday, business trip, whatever it is. And they were just trying to take a 2-3 hour flight to avoid a road trip. Right now, with everything going on, and I've never been comfortable flying anyway, but I would say if you have the ability and it's not too far out of the way or too long of a trip, take a road trip. Drive if you have the ability and it's not going to take too much time to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also curious as to why nobody stood up and took that individual out. That's kind of interesting to me. Like,
Yeah.
you have someone literally threatening your family and your safety, and you're just going to sit there with your fucking head down.
Especially after what happened the last time that planes were hijacked by terrorists.
Yeah, like, come on. Quit being a fucking pussy.
Gone are the days of men actually taking action. So with preparedness and awareness, when you enter a space, simple things that can be done: notice where the exits are at, notice who is in the space when you enter, their behavior, what they're doing, who they're interacting with. Notice any changes in their behavior. If someone else enters that space that you're in, I mean, don't sit there and stare and be obvious about it, but make sure that you're aware of what's going on. And if there's new people that enter that space, if someone is up to no good, most of the time you can tell in their mannerism. They're going to be acting shady, off by themselves, hands in pockets, head down, or they're going to be shifty-eyed, looking around person to person, whether they're trying to steal something or they're about to pull out a gun or whatever it is. Something will be off about their behavior that can clue you into what's about to happen.
Yeah, this stuff isn't hard. Like, I'm going to give an example, and then we can go into ways that guys can focus on now how to better prepare themselves and their families. But if you walk into a restaurant with your family and everybody's sitting down and eating, that is called a baseline. You expect that to be normal when you walk into a restaurant. Another example is when you pull up to a red light, you expect everybody to stop. That is natural to your baseline, right? Something outside of the baseline would be you walk into that same restaurant and someone is standing in the middle of the walkway eating their food. That is outside of the baseline. It's probably something to pay attention to. That doesn't necessarily right then and there mean anything other than the fact that it's kind of weird. Like, everybody else is sitting down eating with their family, and this dude is in the middle of the walkway eating his food standing up. Like, that's just weird, right? So there's going to be a baseline into every environment that you go into. So when something presents itself that is outside of that baseline, that notes something to pay attention to. Yeah.
And starting that off, you had mentioned what guys can do to prepare themselves for those situations, and a lot of that goes into training and equipment, of course. With having the appropriate gear and equipment for whatever situation is coming up is always important. But what would you say is more important about training than having the actual gear that's needed?
Your Gucci gear does not defeat poor training. So you spending $3,000 on a competition pistol doesn't trump your inability to shoot a goddamn pistol. So take the courses, do the training, become proficient, and then if you want the nice gear, that's great. But what happens when the gear's stripped from you and you haven't actually built the fundamentals and the training and the discipline to actually be effective, period? Your gear doesn't mean anything. Like, it's the guy that that like makes fun of the guy driving a Ferrari, but hasn't driven anything more than a Honda Civic. It's like operating with a Ferrari is a lot different than driving your automatic commuter to work every day. Like, it's just a different level of performance that is required to be in a vehicle of that kind of caliber. So when I go and buy the Gucci gun and I don't have a baseline and I haven't built fundamentals and I haven't trained to be efficient and effective with just a Glock 19, it's a paperweight. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't look like, you look like an idiot. Really. Like, you're going to, and I've seen this many times, where guys have come to a class and they're grossly overweight, but they got the nicest gun. And it's amazing. Cool. You're not getting past your porch, dude. Like, the gun doesn't mean anything. You're ineffective physically, which means you're ineffective mentally. So your Gucci gun doesn't really mean anything, because being prepared is more than just being able to shoot. It bleeds into physical readiness, mental readiness, tactical readiness, all of that comes and creates what is the protector. So if you're not prepared in those areas, you're not prepared to operate a Glock 19, let alone the Terran Tactical $5,000 setup. So start with the simple things. I know guys that can effectively handle a Glock 19 way better than you can handle your super cool setup from Gucci.com. Like, be proficient with the little, and then you can stack gear onto that if you'd like.
Yeah, the military has a saying that everyone's fond of, the KISS principle: keep it simple, stupid. Mm-hmm. And with that, like you said, there's a lot of guys who will buy the Gucci shit, the $5,000, $7,000 pistol, without taking into consideration that those firearms are really precision platforms, as opposed to what we would refer to as duty platforms. So I've competed in the tactical games. Not saying that I'm any great competitor on that level. There's some amazing people who perform at those games. But I have seen quite a few competitive shooters who show up to the tactical games. One, they're not prepared physically, because the tactical games is basically a CrossFit competition with shooting in between the fitness. And then two, they show up with their $5,000-$7,000 pistol. I won't say what brands, but as soon as they start doing burpees in the sand and everything gets covered in gunk, they have sweat mixed into it, water, like they're crawling through mud, they're getting rained on, and then they pull out their precision $5,000 pistol and it goes click and nothing happens. But I pull out my $400 Glock 17 and pull the trigger and it fires every single time. Knowing what platform, what firearm, what tool is actually going to function in any given scenario is more important than having one that will function under perfect circumstances, because in life you're never going to find those perfect circumstances.
Yeah, so that covers, I think, the pistol, the firearms, the protective nature. So let's move into kind of like preparing your homes and preparing your immediate environment for less than ideal circumstances.
Okay.
So, like, I think we've covered a couple things surrounding that topic. Food stores, water stores, the two things that we need to survive is a good place to start.
Yeah, so for us, that's a little different than what it's going to be for most people, say, if they live in the city. But even people that live in the city, there's simple things that they can do to prepare. Like, anyone can grow microgreens in a jar, or just something that's on their windowsill. Like, people in a small apartment in a city can use their windowsill to grow herbs, and have something that's growing that can be counted as a food source, even though they live in a tiny space. If you're in an apartment, you can put out a little rain catch on your window so that you have some sort of water collection. Now, I did see recently that if you happen to live in Oregon, collecting rainwater can get you thrown in jail.
Same with California, I think. Which
Yeah.
is crazy because of all their wildfires. So
Yeah, and it's collecting water that is falling on someone's land already, and because he happens to catch it and store it so that he can use it for wildfire prevention or watering his own plants, go to jail. So if you live in an environment like that where you are prevented by law from taking these appropriate steps to prepare and care for your family, then it's probably time to start considering options as far as moving away from that place.
yeah, or the if you don't have the means to move away, then look at what options you do have. So I don't collect rainwater, but I certainly buy water by the 5-gallon drum. Super easy and effective, or inexpensive, and collecting on those. Now the hard part is if you do need to leave, it's really hard to transport, but so is a water collection place anyway. Like, water in general is going to be hard to move. But collecting water bottles, collecting those 5-gallon reusable containers that are intended for the office water dispenser things, super easy. So I'd say if you're cut off from all options, then look at moving. But if you don't have the means to do so, then look at the simpler option of let's just go stock up on water. Let's go stock up on, I'd stay away from MREs due to recent developments, but there are things like Patriot Supply and stuff like that offer the 3-month food supplies, or dehydrated food, stuff that lasts a long time with a very high shelf life, that you don't intend on eating for dinner this week, but you can put aside for a later date.
Yeah, and I've used Patriot Supply myself, and for anyone who's not familiar with it, Patriot Supply basically has a shelf life of up to 25 years for their buckets of food. And even if you don't want to order, say, from them, like if you go to almost any outdoor store, you're going to find something that is similar. If you buy just a few meals at a time, a few meals a month, over time, that's going to stack up, and you're going to have something that is set aside in the event that you need food. Yeah, and I agree. Avoid MREs.
Yeah. But start simple. You don't need to be the farmer tomorrow, but start with what you can do. As much as I would like chickens, it would be illegal for me to put a chicken coop in my house because I'm too close to other houses, which there's workarounds for sure. There's absolutely some workarounds. I will not disclose what those workarounds could be, but everybody loves free eggs. So I don't think that my neighbors would be too quick to send me to the cops if I offered them free eggs.
I will say, if anyone out there needs a solution for eggs that is quieter than chickens, quails are small, very, very, very quiet, and lay eggs almost every day.
How about ducks?
Ducks make a lot of noise, and they're dirty.
Yeah.
You need a water source, like a little pond or something for the ducks.
Oh, yeah. I've had some duck eggs, though. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
They're massive.
They're borderline more nutritious than chicken eggs.
Yeah. But so start simple. It doesn't break the bank to go buy a couple meals from. They have the dehydrated meals that are pretty good, I'd say, and they're high in calories, so they're intended to last more than one sitting, so they can be rationed out. But there's a lot of options out there. You don't need to be the farmer tomorrow, like I said, but do what you can do. And it's not living in fear. You are actively preparing yourself and your family so that when everybody else is living in fear and reactive, you have something to fall back on that can give you a sense of security.
And aside from food, if you don't have the ability to collect large amounts of water or store it, if you don't have the space, another option is water purification. You can there's tons of devices out there, companies that have little tablets for purifying water, killing whatever bacteria might be in it, or even those what are the life straws or whatever they are for sucking water through basically a straw that purifies it as you suck it up. You need some way to purify water so that even if everything shuts down, there's no power, there's no water that's coming. If there's a pool of groundwater that's outside your house, you can collect that up and purify it so that you can still drink it.
Yeah, and then that bleeds into like other things that you would also need to consider. So like the tablets, if you guys have never used those tablets, they don't taste very good, but they are very effective. Because they don't taste very good, your kids probably aren't going to love them. So maybe having like some vitamin C or some additional drink mixes lying around to pair with that unnaturally flavored water, so that they're more inclined to drink that water. So like thinking about this is what foresight does is, well, this tastes like shit. I really don't want to drink it. So my kids might not want to drink it either. So what could help to make this more comfortable for the children or for myself, right? So there are all kinds of things that you can add, and this kind of goes into like go bags and stuff like that. Like we have purifying tablets and life straws in my go bag, which is a quick toss into the car. It has everything that I should need, while also looking a little inconspicuous, so I'm not hauling around a tactical trailer, which is to come. But like once you start adding things to your environment that are intended to prepare you a little bit better, you're going to start seeing those gaps that you can also fill. So just like I just said, that is a gap of, this doesn't taste very good, how can I fill that for myself and my kids? Okay, let's add this as well. So once you start playing around with it a little bit, you start to get better at the game.
Yeah, and if you actually do some decent research, you can find some of those flavor mixes that are actually nutritious and help add something to your diet that you might be otherwise missing in a scenario like that. Another thing that I would say to stock up on, which doesn't take a whole lot of space and it'll last forever, sea salt and rock salt. Most people are salt deficient in their diet because their doctors tell them they get too much sodium, and that's because most people get their sodium from things like potato chips, French fries, things that are horrible for them, and they're taking sodium in that has been heavily processed, or it's in the form of iodized table salt. But you do need sea salt and rock salt because it basically replaces all the electrolytes that your body bleeds out when you're sweating. It gives you calcium and magnesium and some other minerals that are in the salt as well. Plus, if you need to use it as a preservative for like meat or anything else, you have it on hand already.
Yeah.
So I'd say we covered a fair amount of topics on preparedness. Is there anything else that you want to dive into before we begin to close it out?
I can just do a quick little recap to close it out. So if you feel like you are in a place where you are completely unprepared, start small. What are the basic things that what are the Maslow's hierarchy of needs that you would need if something was to happen? So food, water, clothing, stuff like that. Stock up on those things. And as things have progressed and things have gotten uncertain, I'm less concerned about how safe I'm going, I'm less concerned about us going hungry or starving or being deficient in water because I've already stocked up on those things. I'm more concerned about having to ground fight or be in an altercation where I'm with my family and it's just me versus someone else, right? So I've taken something off of my plate that I no longer need to worry about, and now I'm more focused on other things. So take some things off of your plate that are really easy to take care of. Food, water, clothing. Take those off of your plate so that you can begin to be prepared in other areas like pistol, defensive tactics, and then building sustainability for yourself to create gaps in dependency. Then you can start looking at, well, what does it look like to like have chickens and stuff in my current county or whatever? Like, what are the laws that govern that? Or what would it look like to move to a nice parcel of land and open up a little like farming area for myself? Like, you can focus more on those things when the little things you know are covered. Like, that would be, if the takeaway was anything else, I would say it would be that start small if you are not prepared at all, and then build, just like you do with anything, just as you do with pistol fundamentals. You start with the fundamentals, and then you add layers to your tactics so that you can become tactically and technically proficient.
Yeah, really good points. Yeah, as you said, can't focus on being physically prepared unless you have shelter, food, and water taken care of for yourself and your family. So I think that's a pretty good place to close out. And for anyone that's out there, if you got something from this, if you could give it a like and subscribe and share it to anyone that you think might also get something from it. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Okay, what's up? Shut up.